There's something about you're in the zone, you're being gifted. There's another force beyond your own,
Right.
your own, as good as your skills are, it doesn't matter what you're doing, there's that zone place. And
As we've spoken about for the last month, the Torah takes a long time to delve into the idea of the Mishkan, the temporary tabernacle, and the idea of God's indwelling, God's dwelling in a physical space, which later becomes the Beis Hamikdash, the temple, and then later becomes our shuls and synagogues and temples. At first glance, just a cursory look, it appears that there's a lot of repetition, over and over again, descriptions of the materials, of what you have to do, how you have to do it. But of course, we know that there's not one extra sentence, letter, or even one extra letter in the Torah. Everything is laden with very, very deep, infinite meaning. Moses is going to be asking for the actual contributions of the materials to be brought. And as we'll see, a fellow named Bitzalel is going to be tasked with the actual being in charge of the actual construction. Based on the first few psukim of our Parsha, we're going to be learning a very, very interesting spiritual idea regarding the building of the Mishkan.
The commentator today that we're going to study is the Ishbitzer Rebbe. He's Rabbi Mordechai Liner, who wrote Mei HaShiloach. We have studied him before, and we'll come back to him, periodically. And before we jump into his words, it's really, he's going to take 3 psukim and kind of juxtapose them and compare and show us that, maybe to give the end and the beginning, that there's something about the way the Mishkan was built that was channeled by divine inspiration, divine providence. It wasn't just the great artistic or artisan skills of the builders, and in some way that applies to what all of us do potentially. Imagine if we did everything we did by divine inspiration. If you would like to go to look at the text of the verses that we're studying and the commentary by the Ishbitzer, so we have that on our website. So you can go to the HebrewLearningCircles.org website. You go to the Jewish Resources link, and there's a drop-down menu, and you go to Parsha Videos, and the text is right there. So this is what it looks like when you go to the website. You have this. It shows up here, and I'll show you how to do that. You go to the website, and you will click on the navigation bar that says Jewish Resources, and you go down to where it says Parsha Videos, and there it is, and you scroll down, it says Source Sheet for VaYakhel. Now you can download the PDF, and here it is, or you can actually watch it, and when you use it, it's right here on the page, and you can scroll through, and there are the videos. So also, while you're on the website, feel free to browse and check out the different programs and resources that are offered there. For instance, the simple, meaningful Bar and Bat Mitzvah programs, the Hebrew Learning Circles for children, home-based education, K-8, adult education classes such as this one, and the Jewish Resources link that has information on holidays and Jewish trivia. You can also join this class live by going to the weekly Parsha and Chassidut Spirituality Online page or group on meetup.com. And when you do that, when you join us on meetup.com, you can join live conversation at the end of the lesson. Again, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel, Hebrew Learning Circles on YouTube. Like, comment, keep in touch. And without further ado, we're going to go right to the text. So the psukim are in Exodus chapter 35, verse 1 and 2, and then verse 30. And I'll read them quickly. It says, VaYakhel Moshe et kol adat bnei Yisrael, vayomer alehem, etc. And in English, Moses then gathered the whole Israelite community and said to them, these are the things that Adonai has commanded to you. And the next verse, surprisingly, you would think, where would it start? It starts with Sheshet Yamim Taseh Melacha Vayom Hashvi'i Yeh Lachem Kodesh Shabbat Shabbaton, etc. On 6 days, work may be done, but on the 7th day you shall have a Sabbath of complete rest, holy to Adonai. And the question the Ishbitzer is going to ask is why are they proximate? Why is these pasukim right next to each other? Does Shabbat have anything to do with the building of the Mishkan, which is the next topic? And then we go down to the pasuk in verse 30 in the same chapter. Vayomer Moshe el bnei Israel re'u kara Adonai b'shem Betzalel ben Uri, etc., which is, and Moses said to the Israelites, see, Adonai has singled out by name Betzalel, son of Uri. Betzalel, son of Uri, Betzalel. So Betzalel was the head craftsman for the temple. And go ahead.
Right. Just very quickly, we're going to get into why the juxtaposition of Shabbos which interrupts the narrative of the instruction about making the Mishkan, and the simple understanding brought by Rashi and all the sages. It's to teach us a very important thing, is to teach us that we're supposed to build the building, but not on Shabbos. Not on Shabbos. And this one pasuk over here, from this we learn all the major rules and restrictions of Shabbos, the 39 types of labor that we are forbidden, the general types of labor that we are forbidden to participate in on Shabbos,
right,
are the very 39 labors that were required to construct the tabernacle.
Right.
And that's where we learn that from. All of Shabbos is learned from this one pasuk. Of course, we're going to get into a more mystical understanding and a different understanding of the juxtaposition. I just wanted to mention that.
And we will find out from the Ishbitzer, what does that mean that he was received Ruach HaKodesh? What does that actually mean? How does that work? Sort of the dynamics, the anatomy of God giving somebody the divine inspiration to be able to build something. And especially, the temple, you could say it goes without saying that, sure, Ruach HaKodesh is building the holy temple, but the Ishbitzer will explain a little more.
All right.
And let's jump right into that. VaYakhel Moshe et kol adat bnei Yisrael v'gomer. So Ishbitzer starts by quoting those first verses that we just read, and Moses had all the people gather, and then Sheshet Yamim Taseh Melacha, and then the next verse is 6 days you shall do all your labor, etc. And then Vayomer Moshe el bnei Yisrael re'u kara Adonai b'shem Betzalel, and Moses said to the people of Israel, look, God has called Bezalel by his name. We'll open that up. Inyan Seder HaParshiot Halalu, the meaning of the order of these verses, Ki b'mlechet hamishkan ktiv asher natan Adonai chokhmah utvuna bahema, explains that in the building of the tabernacle, it says in a separate verse, I think it's the next verse after verse 30, verse 31. Adonai gives or places, imbues chokhmah utvuna inside them, meaning those who are building the Mishkan. And chokhmah and tvuna are two high, you could say, refined sources of light, and these are also terms that come from the 10 Sefirot. So there's, they literally mean wisdom and understanding. So those are two aspects of the ability to construct a temple. But he's also hinting here to the kind of inspiration that comes from the zone of Chokhmah and the zone of Tevuna in the upper realms, Kabbalistically speaking. What does this mean? That the labor is being done from a place that's beyond their normal consciousness, sichlam, the normal mind. It comes from a higher place in their mind. ומצד העושים במלאכה נעשה רק כמעשה קוף. And from the side, from the angle of the people who are doing the labor, and you can say from their experience, from their perspective, it's done as if the doing of an animal, right? It's go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is it's for them themselves. He's saying they themselves, they're just like moving the hammer around, because it's like an animal. You give an animal an instruction, it carries out the,
right,
whatever it is, a kuf, a kamaisa kuf, like an animal, like a monkey.
Yeah.
It's also a play on words, because asher nosan Hashem chachma usavuna ba hey ma. He put wisdom and understanding into them, into these people, to these Jews that are building the thing. But Bahema could also be read as Behema.
That's right. And the Kof is a Behema. Okay. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you, Rebelli. That's brilliant. So it's a beautiful connection. So, and you could say as a puppet, I would say.
That's what he means. He's using the mushal of a monkey, because the monkey in those days were used as entertainment and so forth.
You teach it tricks.
Monkeying the acts of a human.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what he means.
Yeah. So as if they're like automatrons, or automatons. I'm sorry. What's an automaton? I just made it up. Automatons. So they're just doing it. That the labor is actually finished or concluded or guided, you could say, from Hashem Yitbarach Lemala, from the Holy One, blessed be, above. Midatam klal kivnu yedehem. So their hands are being directed from a higher consciousness. And as it is written in Tehillim, in the Psalms, and he's going to bring some proof text, yanchem, and with the wisdom, the skill of his hands, he directs them. That the skillfulness that is found in their hands. And by the way, when he says skillful tvuna, this is not simple. These are very highly skilled people. I mean, just to understand that I want, when I put it in my mind, it's not just, they're doing, they're preparing breakfast. I mean, if you look at the details of what they have to do and the materials they have to work with, and it's so exact and so intricate. I think we need to appreciate that in that context. These are artisans of the highest caliber, who are doing this work. And what he's saying that skillfulness that's in their hands, in their ability to do, only comes from the Holy One, blessed be. They did what the Holy One wills, without any of their own knowledge and calculating at all.
Right. And it's interesting also over here, he brings this pasuk from Tillim, ubituvunos kapav yamchem. So with the understanding of the hand. So understanding is an intellectual capacity. The hand is a physical capacity. But somehow an intellectual capacity is being brought into the physical hand.
And indeed, in their perception, they imagine, and they is the people who are doing the work, the artisans, to each one of the people who are actually executing the labor here for the Mishkan, that they have done wonders with their own effort, in the wisdom of their own heart or ability. I think this is also based on a Rashi here. And indeed, when the people of Israel brought their contributions, and so we know that Moshe asked them to bring the materials, and they bring a lot of things. So when they brought more and more and more, and that was because they were driven to do this for the sake of God, of the Holy One. So when the laborers saw the devotion and the single-mindedness of those who were bringing the materials, they were inspired, as I hear it, and they realized that they're not singled out or above or higher than the simple people. Yeah, go ahead.
No. This phrase, she'en lo shum hisnasos, no boasting.
Right.
When they saw it brought them down a few notches in terms of what could have been an overpowering ego trip.
Right.
And I don't want to say anything more because this is really the point, the overriding point that the Ishbitzer is trying to make here.
Right.
So let's go.
Yeah, right. So that's where we're going to. Kasher Hilbu Yisrael Lavi. I think he talks about that when they brought more and more and more. He says, why did they bring more? He says, because if you bring once, so you're happy with yourself. He asked why Hilbu Yisrael Lavi? Why do they bring more and more and more? So imagine it's like what was the Fantasia? I think was the Disney movie where the brooms are bringing buckets of water, right? And they bring more and they bring more and bring more. It's a little bit of that, So the interpretation here was that because they brought more, because when you bring once, so you're happy about yourself. Oh, I did something so wonderful, but when you bring again and again and again, it's no longer about being mitnase. It's no longer being high there. It's about really being focused on the deeper purpose, right? Mm-hmm. And that was this bringing more and more. They were driven. They were, they had this real single focus, and that inspired the artisans. Lest the artisan felt they were so special, so they were inspired by those who were bringing, all the contributions, etc. Right. Anyway, moving on. And he's going to bring a quote here from the Zohar that says basically the same thing, that the workers are doing their. I'll read it. B'shata dechol hu omnin sharu leme'abed umnuta hahu uvda mamash kishran ehi ashtelimat migalma inun shran ve'ehi ashlimat avidata. So God. Go ahead, Mabel, you.
No, it just says exactly that. That when at the time when they started, when these workers, these craftsmen began their work, it mamish got it finished. Ishtalimas migama. It finished by itself. In other words, God took over.
Yeah.
They threw themselves into the work, which would have been impossible for them to
Right.
accomplish, based on all the intricacies of the architectural plan over here. It's really hard to do.
Right.
But it finished. God finished it for them. They started. God finished.
Right. So that's a principle. That's a principle here, and it's beautiful because there's a term for that in the nomenclature, and that is to be in the zone. And we would discuss this later. I think this is how I process this. There's something about you're in the zone, you're being gifted. There's another force beyond your own.
Right.
Your own. As good as your skills are, it doesn't matter what you're doing. There's that zone place. And now he's going to connect that to these verses that we saw and see how they intersect. And this is why it says, and Moses had the people, the community of the people of Israel gather. V'nirmaz bechan, and it's hinted here, kahal ve'edav Yisrael. It's talking about there's three different terms for the community, right? For the people of Israel. Kahal, which means the gathering, Eda, congregation, you could say, Eda, which means you could say community. Then Israel means the nation, the peoplehood. Mm-hmm. So he's asking the question, why does it say he gathered the congregation and the community and the nation, right? What is this about? It's meaningful. Hainu she'asa kihila b'ra'ash gadol. He has created a gathering. It says literally a noisy gathering, but meaning this is a big, bustling gathering. Is that how you read it?
Yeah. So the Kehillah, the gathering, is one aspect. The gathering of the community, and it's done in a very publicized, and public way, and everybody is involved.
Everybody involved. Katan begadol shamhu. So this basically. So it means,
and he'll say in a second why.
Yeah.
What's the advantage of this?
I'm trying to understand his language, his thinking when he says Kila Berash Gadol. I think he's being a little poetic here, and basically what he's saying, everybody's included, from the babies to the older. Nobody's excluded. Basically, it's everybody.
Right.
To show that nobody is greater than the other. The big ones, the small ones, everybody it's like a democracy. Everybody is gathered and everybody has the same level of contribution on qualitatively. No one person can boast that they have a higher contribution than the other, right. Especially not the people who are the artisans who are building the Mishkan. Right. Because everything is being done from a place that's above their ordinary consciousness and calculations.
Right. This is above everyone's pay grade. So no one can be put up on a pedestal above somebody else. Because nobody would get it if it wasn't for Hashem letting them get it. Right. Because the pasuk says, V'chol ish chacham lev. V'chol ish chacham lev. Right. Everyone or anyone, because chacham lev, again, the chachma into the lev. That's
right. Bringing the chachma from the highest sephira down into the heart of each person. Right. And now he's going to the second verse, and that's why it says 6 days you will do your work. I'm sorry, I did not read it correctly.
That's it.
Okay, so what he's pointing out that if you read the verse, you see that the word te'aseh is conjugated in a way that it doesn't mean you shall do your work, but the work shall be done, which he says which is really in the Hebrew, for just to clarify that for people who are maybe not clear on that, in the Hebrew, the difference is really just a difference in the vowels. The word is the same word, but it's spelled the same way. Instead of ta'aseh, it's te'aseh, and that means it goes from the active to the passive. So if it was ta'aseh, you shall do your work, but if it's te'aseh, your work shall be done. Aha! It goes back to this idea that it's being done from a higher place. Hitpa'el, lashon hitpa'el ki hivinu kulam. And why is the verse written that way? Because everybody understood that everything comes from the Holy One, blessed be, from the higher realms, and they should not be so self-congratulating about their own powers or good skills. And that's why it says later, now he's explaining the third pasuk, and that's what it says later in verse 30. Look, God has called Bezalel by name. That the Holy One sees through everyone's heart and is above everyone's head. Literally means is superior to everybody else.
So he's asking a question. If you just told me, he's telling me for the last half hour we're talking about no one is bigger than the other one. Everyone's got the same capabilities, and it's God who does it for me anyway if I put in the effort. Mm-hmm. Then you're telling me something that seems to contradict that. Mm-hmm. And God called upon one particular person. Mm-hmm. It's solid. That right. Contradicts everything we've learned up to this point. So from here to the end, the Ishbitzer is going to explain why it's not a contradiction. And this gets into a little bit of a nuance about because we see that there's regular people, we see there are rebbes, we see there are leaders, there are tzaddikim. Not everyone is actually on the same, working from the same level. So he's trying to explain how you just told me no one can be boasting, so this is what this is. Even though everyone knows there's no reason for me to be a big shot.
That's right.
But
Sod Adonai Lire'av, right. The secret of Adonai is to those who are devoted to God. After a person recognizes by him or herself that in his root, in his spiritual root, in his root in the above, that there is no, he or she is not better than anybody else. Yeah,
once God says, I'm speaking like I'm Hashem. God says, oh, now I see this guy really gets it, that nothing is really from him, mm-hmm. that he's batel, he's nullified before me.
Right.
Now I'm going to put in him a higher power,
a special
ability.
Right. So it is the person who can recognize their equalness or their true measure, the person who really sees that in their root, they're equal, their neshama is like the neshama of everybody else in the world, then they can merit to receive a higher power that's unique, that gives them a unique role in the world. Hashem yitbarach mitzido birer zot, shechtiv yimaleh oto ruach Elohim. And the Holy One, blessed be, made sure that that is true, and as it's written, "Vaymalel Torah Chaim," and God filled Bezalel with the Spirit, with the divine Spirit.
Right.
So in fact,
it wasn't him. It was the divine Spirit. It wasn't Bezalel.
Yeah, that's right.
Mitzad himself, he's a nothing and nobody like everybody else is.
ולכן כתיב,
got Ruach Elokim.
Yeah. ולכן כתיב, in other words, one needs to empty in order to be filled.
That's it.
That is Ishmael's deep point here. Apropos, the word Betzalel means Betzel El, in the shadow of God. And this is his name, is exactly what the Ishmael is teaching us. We should all be blessed. I call this being in the zone, and we should all be blessed that we're in the zone and in the right zone, not in the no parking zone. I'm talking about the divine zone. That what we do is an extension that we can really make that kind of empty space within us, so we can have our lives be a contribution, be a vehicle for what Hashem wants for us in this lifetime. And I think with that, we're going to conclude here. It's a good place to wrap it up. We again, folks, if you haven't yet subscribed and you're inclined to, just click the button. It's we appreciate it. We'd like to have you included and informed, and we'd love to see you back. Like if you mean it, and comment below so the conversation continues. And with that, we're going to say shalom for now.